Hello, friends, and welcome to Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about. I'm Joy Selden, and I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle and Joy, and I've seen almost nothing.
And we're here today to talk about Blood Red Sky.
Yeah, it's a very special movie night.
It's a special movie night with a very special movie.
Joy, what are we starting with? Are we starting with like a summary of the movie or thoughts, feelings?
I think, well, first things first, Blood Red Sky is currently on Netflix. It also has an alternate title, I believe, Transatlantic 473.
Oh, that's way more boring. Why would they just call the movie the name of the plane?
I know. Well, I think it might be on the heels of like Flight, whatever. Like how many movies are like Flight, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but then it's usually like the sort of movie where it's like, I don't know, something that could actually happen in real life happens on a plane, and then the pilot like miraculously saves the flight, you know?
That's fair.
Blood Red Sky, this is a horror movie, folks. Like, this
Absolutely
is what you are
horror.
about to watch, right?
And it is a German action horror thriller.
Which, Joy, okay, first of all, dear listeners, Joy showed me the trailer to this movie probably a year ago. And at the time was like, oh my gosh, we should totally watch this. This looks like fun. And I said, yeah, perfect summer movie. And here we are a year later. I forgot that it was a German movie, and it took me until 12 minutes in to notice that I was watching it dubbed.
With the English dub? Okay, so there's a reason for that.
We got to the airport. We were like in the airport, and it was the scene where Farid is talking to the boy, Elias. Yeah. And I was like, their mouths aren't synced. Is something wrong with my internet? And I was like, oh.
Oh, wait a minute. They're speaking German. Now, here's the thing. I switched it because I was like, oh, wait a minute. It's a German film. There's probably, like, maybe it defaulted to English. I want to watch it in German. But the thing of it is it opens with this sort of flash forward. Mm-hmm. We're in Ireland? Scotland?
Scotland.
I think we're in Scotland.
Landing Scotland.
Yeah, they're landing in Scotland, and I'm like, but everybody's speaking English.
Well, that's the thing. So everyone was speaking in English, and I was like, okay, It's a movie in English. And then there were several scenes after that were just like very minimal when it came to the speaking. And then we finally got to the airport. We're 12 minutes into the movie, and I realized, whoops, I'm watching a dub.
I gotta say, I genuinely was weirded out almost that they even had an option to hear the German and English, because that takes away some of because actually there are many, many languages in this film, right?
Yes.
There's German, there's English, there's Arabic. There's there's Czech at one point. I mean, a very little amount of Czech, but there's Czech. Like, there's like 6 languages in this film all by itself.
Right.
But for some reason, we're going to have an English dub just for the German. Nobody could see those gigantic too many quotation marks I just did, but you're welcome. Nobody except Danielle for a theater of one.
Nobody except for me. Wait, so Joy, why are we watching this movie? Why did we watch this movie?
So I chose this movie because there was something about it that really drew me in, because I love takes on old horror cliches, and and classic horror characters, like a vampire. There's like nothing as old in film as the vampire.
The vampire.
Like all the way back to like Nosferatu. Like the vampire is such an old classic film horror villain. Mm-hmm. And my opinion of this has kind of actually evolved even in just the last 3 years, say, even though this came out in 2021, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. No, but there was for a really long time this weird gatekeeping idea that you couldn't have, not that you couldn't have, but like that women didn't fit into the role of action star or horror movie, or like as a hero, as a athletic, as a, like as the hero of the film. Mm-hmm. And, I think we sort of lost that a little bit with Terminator, which again, I have to show you. Specifically Terminator 2. Have you seen Terminator 2?
I've seen Terminator 2. I've seen Terminator and Terminator 2. Aha!
So I guess spoilers for Terminator 2, but
yes, I've seen that.
Like, I always hold that up as sort of the epitome of having a woman in a heroic role, often filled by a man, and allowing them to be a mother and allowing them to be vulnerable while also allowing them to kick butt.
Yeah.
And
you know the classic heroine film I have not seen? Any of the Aliens franchise.
Oh, that's right. We should have a watch.
Right? That's
maybe we'll skip Alien 3, but we can. Yes. So the interesting thing about Alien, and I swear, everybody, we're going to talk about Blood Red Sky at some point. I promise. But like the interesting thing about Alien is that part actually was written for a man. And when Sigourney got cast, they were trying to think of ways to change it and ways to adjust the character, but you don't need to. Like. And you'll know this when you see it. Like there's no thing that makes that character male. And then in the second movie, and in the second movie, it's brought home a little bit more intense because that has a lot of mother-daughter themes and a lot of parenting themes and things like that I think bring out a more women-led character. Like that. But again,
whereas in this movie and in Terminator, like they are very specifically moms. Like they are written to be moms. Okay.
Exactly. They're written to be moms. They're specifically protecting little boys, which I don't think is an accident. But like I think there's a real through line of that maternal instinct. Now, my opinion of this has evolved because, again, just because you are a female parent, a male parent, a non-binary parent, doesn't mean you can't actually have a maternal instinct. I actually have the opinion that, like, maternal is not actually gendered. Fight me. But, but like, I think trying to get your foot in the door as women in action films and in horror films and sci-fi, you kind of had to do something that made that character maternal. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, love it or hate it, we kind of needed that to shove in the door for, like, the rest of it. You know, so you could have, like, a Mako character from Pacific Rim who is just kicking butt and being vulnerable and being a lady and not a mom. Look at her. Like, she's not a mom. She's not even not a love interest. We did it.
The moms had to do it first. But also, you know, I think it's also just a really, really easy way to raise the stakes.
Right.
You know? Like, everything is that much more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Everything is that much higher. Everything is that much more intense.
Yeah.
And especially when you have a classic mom character caring after a child, which, you know, usually single mom. It was that way in Terminator. It's that way here.
Yep.
I think it's this interesting balance of, you know, the maternal, the vulnerable, and especially here having a character that is just dangerous. Yes. You know, like Sarah Connor in Terminator is dangerous, but like she would never hurt her child. Absolutely not. And like this character in Blood Red Sky, spoilers, is a vampire trying desperately not to eat every single person around her at any given moment, including her son.
And trying desperately not to make other vampires.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. There's something about this character that's just so beautifully intense and like not just vulnerable, but like monstrous in that very visceral way.
Yes.
Like,
visceral is a good
actress.
word for it.
This actress is doing a great job. So this movie, in a nutshell, is a mother and son get on a plane that is like eminently going to be hijacked.
Yep.
It's pretty obvious. It's like pretty obvious, like 20 minutes into the film, of people making eyes at each other.
Yeah.
Making sure so-and-so's on the flight or whatever.
Man, and these
my
unlucky
favorite part about that, though, I know these poor really unlucky by the end of the film, as we'll find out. But like, my favorite part about that whole nonsense is there's no, like, we never figure out why the hijackers hijacked the plane.
No, never. I sort of appreciate that about this movie. It's like, hey, listen, you know what? There are some movies where you're going to get deep lore, but it's not always necessary. And so we don't know why the terrorists are taking over the plane. And we don't even really know how vampires came to be or why vampires exist in this world, if they've been around for thousands of years. Like if it's a medical experiment gone wrong, like we just don't know. It's not in there. We just don't know.
You're welcome to have your own debate. I do like that they make several commentaries, not very clean, like super clear, preachy commentaries, but there are some tidbits thrown in there about like how you can't really trust a population. Mm-hmm. And you can't, and like the hearsay and stuff. Like there's definitely people on that flight who speculate why they hijacked the plane, but it's like we literally never know.
Oh, they're trying to rig the election. Like, it's they want to crash the stock market. They want to short the stock market. You're like, okay, sit down.
Yeah. All right, got it. Gotcha. Good job. But yeah, no, and we never find out. We never find out from anybody. So the mom, we do know that the mom is a vampire before she gets on the flight.
Yes.
Because she goes to the bathroom before boarding the plane. She drinks a little bit of blood and then she like injects herself. And through the course of the movie, we see that the injections help prevent her from becoming monstrous, while drinking the blood makes her more and more and more monstrous. So there's that balance of, okay, I can drink this blood, but then I need to like reverse the effects.
Myself, with this medicine so I can keep my wits about me and operate as a human and a mom who isn't going to kill my kid.
Who isn't going to kill my kid?
It's very Porcupine Man from...
Right? Without realizing it, shout out to our season 2 of Fringe. Without realizing it, I essentially did a Fringe episode for our movie night.
You're welcome, I guess. 1,000% a Fringe episode. Plus the terrorists. I think that the Fringe episode maybe would have been like highlight, delete on all of the terrorist subplot. Because so the mother and the son are on the plane. Mom is on the plane trying to get to New York because she's seeking treatment for, I guess, a more permanent fix for her vampiric tendencies. Either
creating more medicine or, again, they don't really go into it that much. But there's definitely like a doctor waiting to see them in New York.
Yes. And then it just so happens that some terrorists hijack the plane and chaos ensues.
Yeah.
Joy, how many times have you seen this movie? Is this one you've like already seen over and over again?
No.
Or okay.
So I didn't see this movie before we watched it for this podcast.
Oh, really?
I hadn't seen it.
What would have happened if we had both hit play on this 3 hours before recording this podcast and we were like, we hate this. This is the worst movie we've ever seen.
Well, maybe we wouldn't have recorded tonight. No, I'm kidding. No, I probably would have found something to like about it because it's, some horror movies are like such a fun genre of like either it's campy or it's, got jump scares or, like they manage to keep the suspension of disbelief pretty much to a minimum, except the axe, but we'll get there. We'll get to the axe. The axe is coming. I think genuinely I was probably always going to love at least the attempt to create a movie that like, oh, and your mother, by the way, is a monster.
Yes.
And you're desperately trying to save her life so she doesn't murder everybody and maybe you and like lose herself to the monster.
Everyone on the plane is trapped with her. And then, of course, there's the very classic, like, but who's the real monster? Because over and over and over again in this film, it is not her who is causing mayhem and killing everyone else around her. It's humans, like other humans.
Other humans, specifically specifically one of the terrorists who is called 8-Ball.
In my notes, it's just Robert, because his flight attendant name when he was pretending to be a flight attendant was Robert, and I just never shifted. But I did watch the entire thing with closed captions, and so I did find it particularly delightful about 2/3 through the film when he becomes a vampire and the closed caption switches from like 8 Ball to Vampire 8 Ball.
Vampire 8 Ball. Because he wasn't horrifying enough.
Well, okay, so he is just, I can't decide whether I like him or not. He's a very entertaining character to see on screen because he is just so unhinged. I can't think of a better way to say it.
Well, he is very chaotic, right? Like he doesn't see things in a straight line.
Well, I will say chaotic, like yes and no, right? Because like, okay, from the outset, he's an incredibly brutal character, and they make him out to be that way. Because, listen, obviously we don't condone any of the actions of any of the terrorists on this plane, right? And most of them are very much like down to business. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get on the plane. We're going to take out like just the people we really need to take out. And then we're going to land the plane in this area. I guess they blow it up.
For reasons.
And then they jump out of the plane. We still don't know. But he, Robert / 8 Ball, takes particular, like, seems to really enjoy actually, like, scaring and hurting the people around him in a way that the other people in his group don't. And even, like, the way that he takes out his air marshal is wild when everyone else is like, oh, let me, like, quietly kill this person with a pillow. He's like, stab him in the eye and then 6 times in the gut. You know?
And now he's covered with blood.
And then he's covered in
the
blood.
cabin.
And then he makes a grand entrance to the main cabin. Gun in hands, covered in blood. I'm like, Robert, come on. Yeah,
come on, buddy.
Come on, buddy.
Get with the program. No, I found it fascinating that the other people in the party were not, like, were horrified. Yes. While kind of being like, that's just Robert.
That's just Robert. Robert, remember what he did and wherever the place was? Oh, man. You know, and it's like, why did you even let him onto your team? But he's like, so he's simultaneously...
Yeah, I had that thought too. I was like, why is he here?
Why is he here? He is simultaneously their most chaotic character. But at the same time, one of my favorite things about him is that he is the one who figures out that there are vampires on the plane. And y'all, I know I'm skipping all over the place, but I feel like this is the sort of movie where you just sort of have to do that. It's not going to be fun to like talk through it.
I mean, like, I highly recommend people watch it because I do think the movie itself escalates at a really nice clip. Like none of it's rushed. It takes its time. It gives you the backstory. Yeah. Like it is really well done. However, if we were to talk about it piece by piece, we would be here for 2 hours, so it's just not happening. But I highly recommend seeing it. It is available on Netflix. Check out your Netflix. Go watch it. Yeah. Anyway,
it was really good. So he's the one who figures out that there are vampires on the plane, right? But he figures it out because he sees like one of his buddies on the floor with like his neck ripped out. And he's like, there's no way a dog did that. And then he finds the little vial of medicine. And then he finds the mom's notebook. We don't find out the mom's name until the end of it, so my notes all the way through just say mom.
I know.
You know? And then he finds Nadja's
We don't
notebook.
find out a lot of names in this movie. There's not a lot of names being thrown around.
Nadja's notebook, or the mom's notebook, has basically, she's like tracking the sunrise and sunset every day, and then like different amounts of blood. All he does is he opens the book and he's like, well, it's vampires. And 2 minutes later, he's making himself a wooden stake out of a hockey stick. And I
mean, he also did know. He also knew for sure that he shot her full of bullets, and then the body was gone.
That's true. But it was just so funny because, like, everyone else is like, dude, no, vampires don't exist. There's no way. Let's get back to the plan. And he's, like, in the corner carving a hockey stick into a wooden like steak.
Not gonna lie. So here's what I like about Robert / 8 Ball.
Okay.
I played by Alexander Scheer, who's also like a phenomenal actor.
I don't think I know anything else that he's in, or maybe
I feel like
just,
I've seen him in a handful of things. He's really good, surprise, at doing the extreme, over the top characters.
Yeah.
Right. As I'm sure you've noticed. Like I think he even plays like a ridiculous Nazi in one other movie. Like ridiculous, like very over the top. I think he played Andy Warhol, which in my opinion is just an over the top human.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
You know, he's good at this. This is like why you choose him, right? He's very high energy. He's very intense. The reason I enjoyed watching him, I didn't like his character at all, but I enjoyed watching him work because if this movie was about the fact that there was a monster vampire on a flight and you needed a hero to solve this problem, he's probably your hero.
Yes, like he's the one who figures out the black light, you know?
Yep.
He's the one who takes the syringe of blood out of Naja's neck and is like, I want to be immortal. And I was just like, Robert.
I know.
Robert.
And I love that Robert is almost in like another film.
Yes.
You know? And I love that essentially it's like these two story arcs sort of coming together. Because again, if Naja was a monster, you'd probably be rooting for Robert.
Right.
You know, like, why wouldn't you? Even, you know, except for that he's a horrible sociopath. Like,
well, yes.
Psychopath, for sure.
But I think the way you phrased it is perfect. It's like he's in a different movie from everyone else. His teammates included.
Yeah. I really appreciated, I mean, man, I could talk for hours about the woman who played Naja because she was fantastic. But real quick, while we're talking about the posse of hijackers, one of them was Dominic Purcell, who, I'm not sure how many people will recognize that name, but he was made famous from, I think it was Daybreak, where he was like a brother who was in a prison.
Oh.
And like, it was like a thing. It went on for many, many, many seasons. He's also in what was it? Legion.
Legends. Something. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I will say, all over my notes, because I never caught his name, I just wrote him down as Mick. Because I'm like, well, it's Mick.
It's just Mick. Okay, can I tell you, I love him in Legends because it's like the only time I've ever seen him be a comedic part.
Legends of Tomorrow.
Legends of Tomorrow, thank you, because that was going to bother me. But he is so good in Legends, man.
Did I make up that his name is Mick?
His name is Berg in the movie.
In the show?
No, not in the show.
Oh, I meant like
in the show, his name is Mick Rory.
Okay, see, this is why all of my notes. It didn't Mick.
Yeah. But the funniest thing about this, for me, not only his comedic character in Legends, but the funniest moment for me is he actually plays Dracula in a little movie called Blade Trinity.
Oh, haven't seen it.
Well, he plays Drake, who is Dracula. But it's Dracula. And I was like, wow, I feel like we've come weirdly full circle. Prison Break. Prison Break is the series that like put him on the map. But like
with the guy who also plays the ice person.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I love that actor. I wish he kind of had a little bit more to do, but I loved it when his plan just completely fell apart.
Oh my
gosh. It made me so happy. I was just like, wow. And now you're dead and your flunkies don't know what to do because you didn't share the plan with them.
Playing with any of them. No one knows. And now you're dead. Also, did you clock Robert clocking that you can kill vampires?
Yeah.
I don't want to like Robert, but I just like, man.
Well, but this is where I came from, right? I was like, if this was a different film, Robert would be your hero. And like you would tweak a couple things about his character and maybe make him a little less of a psychopath, but like he'd be your hero.
Less murdery, please.
But like he's your hero. And I love that shift. Also, the death of poor Berg tells us how quick vampirism can take effect. And I find it interesting because I think it's like a blood circulation issue, because when in the flashbacks, like we never see her change that fast.
True.
You know, so I was like, well, maybe she was bit in the hand, so maybe that's different.
Yeah, I mean, what's his face? Fareed was bitten in the hands too, and she was able to like chop it off before it spread to the rest of his body.
Right. Exactly. And like, but everyone else is either bitten the neck or bitten like a you know, like a festering wound. Which, by the way, I'm amazed that guy didn't just change.
Which guy?
The guy with the internal bleeding.
The first class dude.
Yeah.
The guy from
they're trying to crash the stock market.
Ooh. The broker. No, in my notes I wrote it down as like zombie rules. Because they're definitely vampires, but it's a bit zombie rules because, you know classic horror better than I do, but I feel like with vampires, it's not usually like this. Like, it's a little bit more ritualistic or a little bit more like, I have some of yours, you have some of mine, and then, right? Situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. It's usually, I mean, there's different, if you're looking at folklore, there can be different things, right? Because vampirism is different depending on the folklore you're looking at. But usually film, you know, mainstream film vampires, it is definitely not like an immediate thing. Usually you have to, like, you know, in some of the films, it's you have to be drained of all of your blood except for the very last drop, and then you drink a vampire's blood. Usually there's a lot of exchange of fluids, which, you know, gets questionable. But yeah, it is not this fast. It's like 28 days later zombie fast. Which I was not prepared for. I was not prepared for, and now you're going to have a horde of zombies on this plane. I don't know what I expected, but I did not expect that.
No, me neither. I mean, I didn't expect it, of course, until we saw it happening to Mick. And then I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So it's actually it is a bit of a zombie film. It's like vampire zombies, almost.
Yeah, it's almost because like zombie film stuff.
Because you're
zombie
like
rules with a vampire.
Yes, because you're trying to contain an infection, right? And I know that we talked a little bit about this. We talked a little bit about this earlier, and they don't really explain where vampires came from. But the fact that this old guy has a kid who's a vampire and he has all of this medical and scientific equipment hanging out in his basement and has a little cure that cannot cure. He has a little bit of medicine that
like a suppressant.
Yeah, that can suppress his vampirism. Kind of makes me think that it could have been medical experiment gone wrong. Like, oh, we want to create a super soldier, like super strong, self-healing. And then, whoops, they eat blood.
Yeah, no, I would 100% believe that, you know, see, that's also the genius of this film, that they don't explain very much. So they leave it to the audience to make their own hypotheses. But like, man, would I 100% have believed someone's kid is dying.
Yeah.
And so they try to create something to help heal his bones or fix his blood or whatever. And like, whoops, vampirism.
Whoops.
And it's interesting because it's like, you know, because we don't know where it's come from and we don't have an abundance of that. So you just kind of get the evil is in all of us kind of thing. And I was like, yeah. Like, sure. But. Yeah. Okay. And she's constantly living, and like, because of that flashback, we find out that she's basically just living under the threat of constantly being overtaken by her cravings.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, her son wasn't, okay, maybe not an infant, but like definitely like a toddler. Like, he was small.
Was an infant. He was an infant. He was not walking on his own. He wasn't talking.
Yeah. And like, now you have a boy who's, I want to say 10 or 11. Maybe a little younger than that, but like, you know, walking, talking, has his own ideas.
Very
checks
smart
in the
kid.
Bags by himself.
Very smart kid, and
very smart
clearly
kid.
knows that his mom is a vampire.
Yeah.
Like, there is
and knows
no
that she's
part.
trying to find a cure and knows that, like, you know, not every growl means she's going to eat me.
Yep.
Which it totally broke my heart when she growls at her own son. I felt so bad.
I know. Okay.
I felt so bad. But
we have to
like,
talk about,
because he's so old.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like, so she has done what she can to keep it under control for this long.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's like, you know, in my own head, it's like, okay, well, maybe she's running out of medicine. Mm-hmm. Maybe she needs at least more of the, because obviously you can make whatever's in that vial. You just have to make more. You know, you bring it to a chemist and they can make more for you. Or, you know, they're going to try and find a cure flat out. Like, it made so much sense that it's like, okay, you've gone this long.
Yeah.
And now you need to do something else. Like, you are driven to travel. And that's what she's trying to do. She's trying to take a night flight into New York to meet with this doctor to hopefully help them. Like,
yeah.
And it's so interesting to me because it's like, I don't care where it came from. Get it to stop.
Get it to stop. And the thing is, unfortunately for her and everyone else on that plane, I really think that this would have gone fine. And she would have gotten to New York and landed and gotten her cure, and she and her kid would have just continued to exist as they had for years to come, pretty happily. Like, the only reason she lets herself get monstrous or makes herself get monstrous on the plane is because she knows she has to do that in order to save her kid.
Yeah.
Like, she has to become extra strong. She got shot in the chest like 6 times. And then she's like, I gotta get up and save my kid. Right? Yeah. And the first time we see her fangs and her claws really come out are when she realizes she has to save the little girl who's on the other side of the door and protect her kid. And so here come the claws. And then she kills Mick.
And it's like, it's a really interesting level of trying to manage how monstrous she is and able to keep her wherewithal versus, you know, how much strength she needs and how much agility she needs. Because as the vampire, I feel like if she was on solid ground, she'd be more menacing. But sometimes on the airplane, I was like, I feel like you don't really have your footing. It was kind of funny. Like, she kind of scrambles over the seat at one point. And I was like, oh, sweetie. Oh, no.
Yeah. Like when her foot gets stuck between 2 different seats. And I was like, what the?
But like, and like that also leads into like Robert's movie, right? Like the monster would be getting tripped up, right? Yeah. And it's just, oh man, I love the passenger reactions to her. Man, that one final, you know, you're going to take care of my son before she like decides to go out into the plane. So she tries to keep the contagion, essentially. She tries to keep it localized to her as much as she possibly can. Anybody who she's bitten or who's come in contact with her blood, like Robert, who just flat out injects himself, like any of these people, she desperately, desperately tries to keep it contained.
Ooh, the way that she attempted to kill him was...
Oh, I know. It was really
perfect.
Good, man.
No notes.
If he didn't have that healing ability.
Right?
And they didn't, like, put out the fire.
That's what I was going to say. If they didn't put out the fire, I really think it maybe could have worked. But I don't know.
I know. Well, you know, and like, we don't really know how well they heal. Obviously, she was shot a bunch and she was like fine to crawl into the underspace of the, I suppose, spoilers, warning, dogs die. Dogs die in this movie.
A couple of dogs die. You see them dead.
They kind of,
it's sad.
You see them dead. They're not too harsh with it.
No, I mean, it is a bit sad.
It's sad. If you have a thing about dogs and pets dying, you know, maybe like walk out of the room when they're down near the kennels for like 2 minutes.
Wait, Joy, I feel like you were about to say something about the mom, and then I took us totally off track. You were like,
I don't remember.
I think, you were talking about the way she balances her serum with her blood intake, and then the way she goes out at the end of the film.
Oh, yeah. Well, So having having failed to contain the vampirism to just a few crappy people down in the deck of the plane, because that guy with the internal bleeding just had to try and live forever. Wah wah.
He's the worst.
I know. I was so happy when he didn't even get bitten. He just got shoved aside.
Yeah, like, get out of here. You don't deserve this.
Exactly.
Like, your money can't save you now. I was like, yeah, man. Okay, but see, this is a really good example of what I was saying earlier, where like the monster isn't her. Like, she is a monster, obviously. Literally, she's a vampire, right?
Yeah.
And but all of the most of the terrible things that happen in the movie don't happen because of her, right? Like, if that guy from 1A or first class or whatever you want to call him hadn't gotten it into his head that it was more important for him to survive than for anyone else on the plane to survive, and opened up that door and let Robert out, like, the entire plane would have just landed. And then they could have wiped out Robert and Hightower and called it a day, right?
Yeah.
And all, like, 200 passengers would have survived. But he was the one who opened the door. And there's even that other moment with the older guy in the similar scene who went back and was looking for his wife.
Oh,
because he got separated from her. His wife was stampeded on by 200 people who were too scared or focused on themselves to notice that they were running on top of a woman. Like, that's an awful way to go. But again, she wasn't taken out by nausea.
To death in a plane.
Stampeded to death in a plane. She was taken out by people.
She was. That's also why I really enjoy this movie, because it's like, and every time that people see Nadja, they're horrified. And they scream. And like, there's also, you know, the subtle racism of some of the passengers, which the hijackers are counting on, which we'll get to that, the Muslim subplot. Because I will feel so sad if we don't talk about Fahid, because he was so good.
Oh, yeah.
But the obvious inability to contain it, right? And she's just like, and that's it. Like, even the hijacker who's, you know, co-pilot, who's now stuck in there with them, Bastian, who's just, you know, we can't open this door. If we open this door, it'll never shut, because they're just stampeding against it. There's no way. There's no way all of them can fit in here. They can't all fit in the crawl space underneath. Like, that's it. And all they can do is watch every single person on the plane become a vampire. And that's when Nadja realizes, like, we can't land.
You can't land. This 200 vampires that were about to just, like, let loose into the world.
They're just going to wait until nightfall, and they're just going to come out, and it's going to be awful. And that is when she has the moment where she turns to Fahid and she says, promise me you'll take care of my boy. And drains the other hijacker that's in the room with them.
My favorite thing about that also is that she is so logical and so rational and so careful about it. Because first, she says, like, Farid, like, you have to promise me you're going to take care of my kid. But before she even does that, she's like, how easy is it to land this plane? And Bastian, idiot, is like, oh, anyone can land the plane. I'm like, Bastian, bro, you're the co-pilot. You have to convince her that you are important or you are going to die. And he's like, oh, no, anyone can land this plane. It's on autopilot. And he's like, as long as you do this, this, and that, and you're in communication with air traffic control, you're golden. I'm like,
and then, like, gets the approval from Fahid that, like, yes, I will take care of your son. Instantly chomps down on Bastian. Like, Bastian never had a chance.
He had a chance. His chance was to convince her that it was really hard to land the plane. Like, come on, buddy. His last girl instincts just didn't kick in. Like,
absolutely not. Well, you know, he was part of the hijackers and he had to die, and that's just that.
Like, I don't feel bad. He's not a good person. He's a bad person.
Yeah. I don't know if he came back or not. It's honestly, it's a little confusing by the time they actually land, and by the time, you know, the police on the ground aren't entirely sure what happened, and they got some kind of half a message about terrorism, but then someone else came on and said, we took care of the terrorists. And then someone else came on and said the co-pilot's dead. Like, they're very confused on the ground. So they really don't know what to do. So it's just a plane full of vampires. And she literally just like drains this dude and then runs in there with the rest of them. And I think in a way to like just keep them away from her son.
Yeah, well,
and
she
to
had
make sure he gets out.
She had to juice up.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
and she already knew she was just not gonna. She was just like that was it. Like I am not going to come back from this. This is my. I am going to die on the plane as a monster, and you need to take care of my son. And I am no longer his mother. Like this is that moment, and she does. She protects her son at the very last. Like shred of her humanity from Robert and with the help of her son, by the way, which I was so happy for. I was just like, oh, thank God. Like he remembered like he had the detonator in his pocket to like blow the door. I'm like, good boy, good boy.
Yeah.
And her son in turn, like helps to keep her alive a little bit by like giving her a little bit of his blood. And that is when you have this horrible realization that like she is barely hanging on to anything resembling don't hurt this child.
Yeah.
And it's horrifying.
Yeah. She's like physically shove him away from her in order to stop herself from eating him or drinking his blood, whatever you want to say.
And it,
that
like,
kid acted the heck out of that scene.
Oh no, I know. I know. I was almost crying at work. I was almost like, no, she's trying to save you.
And he's just like, Mommy, hug me. And she's like shoving him away. And he's in the sunlight and she's like going towards the dark. It was so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to talk about Elias. Like smartest kid on the planet.
I know.
I mean, I figured out his teddy trick. The minute he was in the ambulance and he started yelling for his teddy, I was like, that kid was smart. That kid put the remote controller in the teddy. Yeah. But the reason I figured that he did that is because throughout this entire film, he's like, I don't know, like Home Alone kid times 10.
I know.
Like, from the moment he pulls a knife out of, like, the back of a human body and uses the knife to open the bathroom door so he can get his mom out, I'm like, who's this kid?
No, I know. Like, I mean, thank goodness she was a vampire because he also runs to the back of the plane and is like, we can hide down here.
Yeah.
And, like, that's ultimately what gets her shot. Is because they're fiddling around back there. But like, man, thank God she could survive it. I'm just saying.
He's like, let's run for the cargo hold. And you're like, stop.
I know you're very, very smart, but what if we just stayed in our seats just for this 1 second? And like, he's so good at being able to understand how much and how little his mom can take, and like they have this very interesting relationship where they are trying to take care of each other.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see. It's really beautiful, you guys. I don't know what else to call it. It's just it was a really nice thing to see in the middle of an action horror film.
I agree. They handled their relationship really well. They made them both out to be very capable and yet very vulnerable characters. And so they're constantly, like you said, having to play off of each other in that way.
Yeah.
And it makes for a really interesting, engaging film. And we haven't even gotten to hero number 3, who is...
Is it Fahid?
Yes. I wrote his name down as Farid with an R in the middle. Am I wrong?
You know what? I might be wrong. Hang on, let me check. Sorry. Yes, Farid.
Okay.
With an R.
I just wanted to make sure I had it right before we talk about him for like 12 minutes. Not 12 minutes, but...
Well, like, I love that this, in a weird way, I felt like this film did, like, is how you do intersectionality right. Because the movie ultimately is not about him either. right? Like it's about this mother and son. But like we definitely have this undercurrent of, he's Muslim. He looks Muslim. Like he doesn't, he doesn't have, I think even in the movie, it's like he doesn't have the beard and the, and the turban, as he sarcastically tells one passenger. But like he is Muslim. And like, this is obviously what the hijackers were banking on, is having these Muslim passengers, passing it off to them. He had I'm sure he was probably put on like some kind of suspicion list after 9/11, because even the police on the ground when the plane arrives is like, there's one possible suspicious terrorist who could be on the plane. And it's like, it could be him. It could be one of the other Muslim guys they grabbed.
The aerospace engineer who's a student. Oh, that poor kid.
I know.
But yes, like this was part of the whole terrorist plan. They literally invented a conference in order to get these three. Well, two of them are Arab men, and one of them is this who appears to be like white dude who lived
in Egypt for a while.
Yeah. And looks like he could have been, like, quote, radicalized, right? Which, of course, he wasn't. He just sort of fits the bill.
Although, man, do I really love how they were like, you don't speak Arabic? And he's like, no.
No.
Like, what are you playing at,
And then they pass it off to the student, and he's just too nervous.
I know.
And then they pass it off to Fareed, and Fareed, like, tries to sneak that distress call in there. Ugh, Fareed. He's just a hero. He's a hero.
I know. He's all hero. And like, I love that there's also this, he obviously notices that the boy is alone. So he tries to protect the boy once he's like, where's your mom? Whatever, it doesn't matter. We're just going to make sure you're okay. And then again, tries to protect the boy when, obviously, the mom is having some major trouble and everyone is afraid of her. Right. And even he has this moment of just like, I can't let you out there. I can't let you out there. You're going to get hurt. Not even necessarily worried about the mom per se, but definitely having this moment of like, okay, if I trust you to like go out there and try and help to bring her back here, like, are you sure it's safe? And just trying to genuinely be a good dude, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And, and even when they're like, well, we can land somewhere. And he's like, it doesn't matter. They made us record this stupid message. Like they're going to shoot us down as soon as we show up anywhere.
Right. Like we're dying either way. We might as well fight back.
Yeah. And I do like that how eventually almost everybody, except for like that one army dude, bless.
Army dude.
I know. He tried.
Pour one out
Put
for
that
Army
on his
dude.
tombstone.
Yeah.
But like, even after getting everybody and getting everyone's attention and like trying to make sure they know that the mom is good and like they start listening to him because it's not, like it was a real Night of the Living Dead situation, right? Where it was like, well, what if he's the rational one and talking the most sense and we just listened to what he had to say and didn't care about our racist ideals for like a second?
Or ourselves, which is just like, oh man.
I know.
Like, listen, am I glad
there was a lot of entitled white people on this flight. And I was kind of done with it. A lot of white dudes being entitled.
Yeah, like done with it or here for it because they all eventually get theirs.
I mean, I was quietly hoping that they all got theirs, and for the most part, I
mean, they got theirs, but also caused a whole bunch of people to die unnecessarily, which is the unfortunate part, right? Like there was one moment I think in the middle, maybe the act, whatever, like the middle bit of the film where. Like, before everything takes the fourth hard left,
Right.
Because so many things go wrong in this movie where
many hard lefts.
It's like, yeah, right. The plane is descending. They're bringing it down. Right. And that first class guy does that awful thing where he like takes an oxygen mask away from someone else. And he's like, oh, screw you. And he like takes it and he like, oh, whatever. I don't know what he says. And then the way that he eventually gets hurt is the entire plane like keels over on its side and he just gets whacked in the rib cage by this enormous heavy object. And in my notes, I'm like, yeah, got his. And then I thought that he would just quietly die from kidney rupture because that's what the doctor said would happen. And if he had just quietly died from his kidneys just rupturing and falling apart, again, like 150 people would have survived.
Yeah. That is not what happened. He doomed everyone else on that flight. I mean, to be fair, the hijackers doomed themselves and then everybody else on that flight.
But they had the hijackers under control by that point.
I know. They were just down in the thing. And it was just like, just ignore all the screams and we'll get through this together. Like,
doctors going around, patching people up. Army dude is like on guard. It was gonna be okay. Man, so great close. Hard left. So close. So close.
I think we're at one more things.
I think we are at one more things. Okay.
I'm trying to think of a one more thing that we didn't talk
about. My one more thing is going to be the general layout of this plane. I have been on many planes in my life. And I have listen, listeners, write in, call in, whatever in. If you've been on a German airplane and German airplanes are in fact constructed this way, and there is in fact a full map of the plane, including the cargo bay, just in the front pocket, like in the back pocket of the seat in front of you. If there is a tunnel system a tunnel chute system throughout your plane so that a monster can go in constant circles in the same direction and never run into the other monsters, someone just please tell me. Because what a great setup. But no, when the flight attendant literally has to like take off her shoes and walk up a ladder in order to get up to the cockpit.
Yeah, no, I thought that was amazing.
Into the cargo bay for the remainder of the film, and the chute just opens up into the center of the main cabin. You can just go. Okay, so it was the layout of the plane. It was the fact that there was a map of the plane in like the pocket of the seat in front of you.
In the emergency packet.
The final thing, which I suppose makes German airplanes very, very special, are their emergency hatchets.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you didn't get to that, that was going to be my one more thing. The German emergency hatchet.
German emergency hatchet. Have you ever been on a plane in which in the cargo hold, you can have kennels, just all these dogs, but also an entire bulletproof car?
Yeah, the bulletproof car was kind of amazing.
What?
Kind of amazing to me. I both was like, I mean, I've seen things where, you know, you use passenger planes sometimes to bring mail, to bring large packages because you need the room and you rent it out to whatever, the government, blah, blah, blah. A bulletproof glassed car.
Yeah.
Seems like a lot.
In the belly of the plane with all the luggage, all the bags.
And it wasn't secured because the dude just like shoved it aside.
Oh, he had to use his claws to like something that was.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
That was tying
Well, I guess it was secured
down.
A little bit, but I'm saying.
Still, though. Anyway, that's my one more thing, which is this plane is a brilliant setting for this movie, but
which is plot holes.
What?
Which is plot armor, plot nonsense.
What if there was a bulletproof car in the cargo bay? Just so good. I love the writers of this movie. I love the writers of this movie for that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we definitely, I think my one more thing is just going to be Perry Baumeister, who plays the mom. And she's just, I mean, like, I know we were gushing kind of about her, but like the mannerisms she had and the way she moved and like how she differentiated between her control and her monster were just, man, like actors and actresses like wait their whole careers to play a role like that. And like she knocked it out of the park. It was so good.
So good.
And I adored it. Like she was my sort of like shining star in the whole movie. Like you follow her and it's just like, well, yeah, you're following the best there, you know? But yeah. And I also really love that, like, we really got like 3 Nadjas, right? Like we got like past Nadja before she was bitten. And then we got like vampire Nadja, and then we got like monster Nadja, you know, which is different. And damn, the makeup was so good.
So
way to go, makeup artist, for dealing with all that nonsense. Good job. And like just just a really solid flick. You know, actually, I wonder what Rotten Tomatoes gives it.
Ooh, yeah.
Because it like to be entirely honest, I was not expecting this film to be this good. I was expecting it to be not quite Snakes on a Plane, because Snakes on a Plane is utterly ridiculous. But it like it had a moment where I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, the concept sounds great, but man, I feel like you make that wrong just a little bit and you are in trouble.
Right. And it's just like 2 hours of ridiculousness. But this was a genuinely enjoyable film. Wait, what did Rotten Tomatoes rate it?
So the audience score is actually lower, which is weird. So the critic score is 81%.
Okay. Solid.
The audience score is 57%, which I'm a little surprised by.
Why? I guess people didn't like it. Well, I liked it.
I really liked it. I think you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say some of the people who gave it a low score didn't actually see it.
Maybe.
Because someone very carelessly in the comments says something like, bats on a plane concept just isn't there. And I'm like, that's not what this film is, though.
That's not what this film is. Or maybe, do you think if we went through all of the comments, there would be the sorts of people who were like, subtitles, I don't want to read those. And you're like, oh, get out of here.
Yeah, I think people had, here's what I think. I think people had expectations about this movie, much like I had, where I was like, I don't know how good it's going to actually be.
Yeah.
Like, I'm interested in it, but I don't know if the execution's going to really happen. But then I was really pleasantly surprised. But of course, my bar was like 0. Yeah. I went in with it, like, I was like, you know what? Either it's like goofy and funny and campy, or you know, maybe it's not that great, or it's awesome. I don't know. Yeah. Who's to say? And like, I was very pleasantly surprised. So I think if I could leave it anywhere, it would be try not to have too many preconceived notions of the film. Just watch it for what it is. Maybe leave the room when you see some dog kennels on the plane. Yeah. And come back for the bulletproof glass and the fire in the car.
Oh, so good. All right, listeners. With that, we would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, would you prefer vampires or snakes on a plane? And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/BachPod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.